On today's show, another blowout loss for the LA Clippers. What went so wrong? And what do we need to be mindful of as fans after this one? Going to be talking about what went down in the Bay on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 21 years, been covering the team on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for 6 and 4 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. On the road to 8,000 subscribers before the end of the month. And of course, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. So on today's show, we're going to be talking about how we lost to the Golden State Warriors on NBC on Tuesday night, 98-79. Yes, 79. It was the first time we were on national television this season. Going to be talking about the questionable decisions of Ty Lue, the questionable performance of Kawhi Leonard, the shot making or lack of it of our entire team, and what's a consistent theme with this Clippers ball club through 4 games. We could talking about everything though, really. So let's begin with just looking at the score, 98-79. Before getting into any details, what's the most obvious thing that sticks out right there? 79 points in a game in 2025. That's crazy. You can put it down to any sort of defense that made it tough. Of course, you have to. If a team scores 79 points in a game, chances are the defense on the other side was pretty good. But this is the NBA, and this is the NBA in an era where most teams generate pretty good shots every single night. The Clippers being the team that led the league in field goal percentage going into this game, but of course, it's so early in the season. But to lead the league in field goal percentage going into the game and then only scoring 79 points, you've got to think there was there was a lack of shot making. We shot 37% from the field. The Warriors shot 45% from the field. But the biggest disparity is in the three-point department. We were 6 for 33 from deep, 18%. The Warriors, on the other hand, 38%, 17 for 45, 11 more threes made. That's your game right there. But I don't want to make it seem like, oh, they made more threes. That's the reason why they won. That's very simplistic. So we're going to talk about things a little bit more. But from an outside perspective, you just look at the box score, that's the most glaring thing. We only scored 79 points because we could not hit a damn open three to save our lives. However, we were still not that great from 2 necessarily. 24 for 49. Actually, I mean, that's not that bad, actually, if I'm being honest. 24 for 49 is almost 50%. So if we look at our 2-point percentage, it's 49%. Yeah. So it's really our 3-point percentage that just killed us, and some turnovers. We shot 13 for 16 from the free throw line, which was good, 81%. And the Warriors only shot 4 free throws in the whole game. 4 free throws in the whole game. And we out-rebounded them. On the offensive glass, on the defensive glass. But the assist category, that's where they killed us. 24 assists to 10. And you know with the Warriors, like we create our offense off the dribble. They create their offense off the pass. They're a lot more of an off-ball motion-oriented team, which begins with their best player, Steph Curry. And we're more of a ISO, pick-and-roll, on-ball heavy team, slower, which is based on the way that our best players, Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, like to play. Turnover-wise, we had 16 turnovers. They had 13. They had 14 points off our turnovers and 17 fast break points to our 9, and led by as many as 24. But let's get into the specifics. So yes, the 3-point disparity. We just could not make shots. That is something that was relevant, especially early in the game. In the first quarter, James Harden created a number of solid shots for us. Derrick Jones Jr., Bogdanovic, didn't matter. They couldn't hit. And even Ivica Zubac, he could not hit his damn push shot that he usually hits in his sleep. early on in this game. And it was another game, third one out of the first four, that we have started poorly, that we have dug ourselves into a hole. However, we did respond and regain the lead going into the half, which was pretty resilient of us. And I thought it would set us up for a very even second half, but boy, was I wrong. As far as the start, Bradley Beal was out again with lower back soreness. So Bogdan Bogdanovic started yet again, and he was awful yet again. His first two shots, one of them barely drew iron. The other one was an air ball. And besides that, he was just pedestrian the whole game. He started and then didn't play in the second half at all. So my first question is for Ty Lue. You started Bogey again. I don't think it should happen again. But if you're going to start him, right, why not stand on your decision? In the second half, we're up by 3. You have an opportunity for him to get into a rhythm, start the second half, and you did the same thing you did against Portland, where in the second half against Portland, he started Chris Dunn to begin the half. This time he started Batum, which I don't blame him because Batum was great in the first half and did a good job on the offensive glass and playing defense. But is that not going to send a message to Bogey that you're kind of losing faith in him? He played 9 minutes in the whole game. He was 1 for 5 from the field, 0 for 3 from deep, and had 2 points. The first 2 games that he's played this season, he has been awful. And I like Bogey. There's nothing personal I have against him, but he's been awful these first 2 games. Do I think he's washed? Do I think he won't snap out of it? I do think he'll snap out of it. But do I want to see him start again, even if Beal's out? No. I think John Collins should be starting. Now, in terms of that first quarter, a lot of it was just Golden State coming out hot. They went on a 13-2 run to make it 27-12. They went on a 7-0 run after it was 7-7. And they hit every 3 known to man, whereas we couldn't buy one. Quinton Post hit 2 straight threes. Jimmy Butler was hitting threes. In terms of Steph Curry, I mean, he was pretty good in the first quarter, but we kept him at bay throughout the game largely. He only scored 19 points in the whole game. In terms of pick and roll coverages, I mean, they're not a team that runs a ton of high ball screen action. We ran some different things in terms of Zoo. I mean, he was hedging on some of the ball screens. He was in a high drop on some of the ball screens. He was in a deeper drop with Jimmy Butler at times. And he got, they hit us for some threes a couple of times, but I don't think it was our pick and roll defense that was necessarily bad in any way. It was more so they were just raining threes to start the game, 47% from deep in the first quarter to be exact, and we were 2 for 12 from 3 to start the game in the first quarter. But James Harden was carrying. He was getting downhill, got an and one, got to the free throw line, and had 13 of our 25 points after one. 13 of our 25. So we were down 25 to 33 after the first quarter. And in the second quarter, that's where we really clamped down. And Kawhi started to get going. Chris Dunn made a really big impact in this game when he came in. Was a bunch of energy. Had 5 points, hit a 3, hit a floater, got some offensive rebounds. Nico Batum also gave us a nice lift. But we in the beginning of the second quarter, we weren't good either. It was more like the later half of the second quarter because we had that lineup without James Harden, who played the whole first quarter, right? We had that staggered lineup where it was Kawhi with the bench players. He was out there with John Collins. He was out there with Brook Lopez. He was out there with Chris Paul, Chris Dunn, and Nico. And we had a couple of lazy turnovers, including Chris Paul in the backcourt throwing the ball across the court and getting it intercepted for a layup. When Chris Paul was in with Kawhi, I've been saying if teams are going to switch everything, which the Warriors are switching a lot of with Chris Paul because they want to negate any advantage that he could possibly get in that pick and roll, they're going to make Kawhi Leonard. The strategy should be for us to let Kawhi Leonard target weaker defenders and go one-on-one. And I don't know if we could have done, I think we could have done a better job targeting specific guys. But Kawhi was aggressive in that second quarter, which has been the model in preseason and in some of these games. Not the last one, but where we have James Harden be more aggressive in the first quarter, Kawhi be more of a pedestrian. He only had 3 shot attempts in the first quarter in this game. And then in the second quarter, when he's in with the bench players, that's when Kawhi Leonard starts getting aggressive. And he just couldn't really hit a shot in the beginning of that second quarter. When James Harden came back in the game, it was 40-25. So he exited the game and it was an 8-point game, and then he comes back in and we're down 15. So what do you have to say about that? Of course, the bench unit's not going to be as good as the starters, but Chris Paul, he's not really elevating much right now offensively. He's not. However, he stayed like part of it's they put ball pressure on him and he's struggling to get the ball up the court. He's turning his back like it's like he's Magic, back in the day. And Magic was 6'9", and you had to dribble with your hand over the ball back then. Chris Paul has one of the best handles we've ever seen, and he's turning his back, bringing the ball up the floor, and he got an 8-second violation last game. 8-second violation. So he's struggling to get the ball up against ball pressure, and it's taking us longer to get into our sets. So that's a strategy for teams to try to slow us down. But when James Harden got back in the game, Chris Paul actually remained in for a sec. And it was interesting. The second James Harden came back in the game, Kawhi Leonard started getting going. And 2 of those buckets came off of direct James Harden passes. One of them was off an after timeout play where Kawhi came off a curl, ended up getting into his mid-range. Then it was a nice, really tough shot he had over Jimmy Butler. Then an and one off of a James Harden drive and kick. That started to get us going. Had us on a little 10-2 run to make it 35-42. And as I said, Chris Dunn was balling, rebounding, flying around on defense. And we held Steph Curry to 0 points in the second quarter. So I thought first quarter, we started out a little lackadaisical, just not with like national TV energy. For example, Draymond Green hits a 3 early. And then Ivica Zubac lets him shoot another one and then doesn't box out. He just runs right to the rim instead of thinking it could be a long miss. And they score off of that on Kawhi Leonard getting beat back door. Then there was one time where Kawhi Leonard in transition was pulled off to the opposite side of the court and the ball's on the strong side and he's not rotating at all when there's a clear pick and roll happening between Steph and I believe Quinton Post. So that was very just not like him. So I just thought we didn't come out with the right intensity on defense in the first quarter, even with the made threes. But in the second quarter, we were much better on that end of the floor and held the Warriors to just 13 points in the second quarter. 13 points. And partially, they just cooled down as well. So they only scored 14 points in the second quarter and were 27% from the field in that quarter, with Steph Curry being scoreless. And so we battled back to tie it and then take the lead. 6 offensive boards from our bench guys. Harden and Kawhi had 30 of our 49 points. James Harden had 20 points at halftime. So he was balling. He was balling. When he came back, we were down 15. We were up by 3 by the time it was halftime. And I thought we did a really good job without fouling. The Warriors only had 6 points in the last 8 minutes of the half. 6 points in the last 8 minutes. And Nico Batum was a big part of that. We outscored the Warriors by 12 points in the 5 minutes that he played in the second quarter. But in the third quarter, it all kind of came crashing down. And I'm going to talk about something that happened with the decision-making of Ty Lue and just a substitution that really seemed to kill the game off for us. But my first takeaway is we keep digging ourselves into holes. And it was just a bad shooting game. Very largely a bad shooting game, so I don't want to overreact too much. We're going to be talking about some crucial things that happened, though, coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. I love how Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox, so no customer gets left hanging. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's quo.com/lockedonnba. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. I got to tell you a little something about rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, But now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnba. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnba. That's rippling.com/lockedonnba for 6 months free. All right. So the Clippers lose 79-98 at the Chase Center on Tuesday night. Our first appearance on national TV without Bradley Beal. Look, am I happy? No, sorry. Am I sad about the loss? Not too much. I did predict when I did my, kind of overview of the first 10 games. I said this was going to be one of the games that we lost because I was just being a little bit like, I didn't want to just say we won every game. You know what I mean? But we should be 3-1 right now. That should have been our first loss of the season. We should never be coming out losing to the Utah Jazz. But whatever. We got to make that up now. We got to make up for that with a win against Oklahoma City, who hasn't lost one game. And then hopefully we can win all the other games. Because I said in the first 10 games, we've got to be at least 7-3. We've got New Orleans next, then Miami at home. So we got to beat both of those guys. And Miami's red hot right now. New Orleans is not. We got to beat both those teams. And then OKC is going to be very tough. And then we've got Phoenix twice. So let's say we beat New Orleans and Miami. That would make us 4-2. Then we lose to the Thunder. That's 4-3. If we beat Phoenix twice and then Atlanta at home, we're 7-3. I'll take that. But let's see if we execute. Now, going back to this game, 79 points. We obviously had a horrible shooting game. Were the quality of our shots good? I think so. I think very largely we got a lot of shots that we usually make and we didn't hit them. But let's talk about what happened in that third quarter, because going into that second half, we were winning, right? We were winning the game. And we started with Nico instead of Bogey. And we also made an adjustment with Ivica Zubac guarding Jonathan Kuminga. So if they put him in the pick and roll, we can drop and leave Kuminga open, even though he's been shooting pretty well so far from three. And then have Nico Batum guarding Draymond so he can switch on to Steph Curry if they run action through him. Now, I thought Zoo in the beginning of the third quarter was looking better than his pedestrian effort in the first half. He was contesting shots at the rim. He had a nice block on Draymond. He had a jump hook over Quinton Post. He had an offensive rebound and dunk. He had a layup off the roll from Kawhi Leonard. And at one point of the game, it was 63-61. We were down. We were right in the game in that third quarter. It looked like we were going to be set for a solid finish in this one with 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. And then what happens is right before that layup that Zubac made from a Kawhi pass, James Harden comes out of the game. And I'm thinking to myself, what? He usually plays the whole first and third quarter. James Harden comes out of the game. Jimmy Butler immediately proceeds to hit a three-pointer to make it 66-61. And then Ivica Zubac turns the ball over in the short roll. Off that steal, Steph Curry makes a layup. 68-61, we call timeout. And then after the break, when the momentum is going against us, Kawhi Leonard gets subbed out of the game. And he's not playing very well, I'll admit. He only played well in the second quarter. He was very quiet in the first. And now he comes out of the game for his normal break. But we now have neither of Kawhi or James Harden in the game. And then Zoo comes out of the game the next possession. So with 2 minutes and 43 seconds left and all the momentum going against us, every single one of our big three is out. We have Brook Lopez, CP3, John Collins, Derrick Jones Jr., and Chris Dunn in there. Jimmy Butler proceeds to make another three off of a Chris Dunn turnover where he tried to ISO and get by Pajimski. So Jimmy Butler just hits 2 threes like that out of nowhere. Makes it 71-61. And then CP3 comes up the court, gets a quick switch, gets Al Horford on him and shoots a semi-contested off the dribble three. I shouldn't even say semi-contested, contested, but a shot we've seen Chris make a ton in his career. Misses, and Moses Moody makes an open three in transition to make it 76-63. And then Chris Dunn shoots a contested floater, and Brandon Pajimski makes a layup with some poor help defense from Chris Paul. Just like that, we're down 78-63 at the end of the third quarter. So the second we took James Harden out of the game, they outscore us 15-2. 15-2 to cap off a 25-6 run. And I have to say, Derrick Jones Jr., his defense in the half court was good, but in transition, multiple mistakes. Multiple times where he's clearly not talking. His head is moving like he's like on a swivel because doesn't know where he's at. You know, usually you want to have your head on a swivel in the half court, but in transition, when he's looking confused and his head's turning a bunch of ways, you know he clearly doesn't know who he's picking up. Several times we don't pick up the guy that's furthest down the court so far this season in transition. And CB3 just looked old, lagging, bringing the ball up the floor. He won't snake the pick and roll, which is when somebody forces him left. He would do an amazing job back in the day of getting back to his right hand, keeping the defender in jail on his back, and weaving into that right mid-range. He has not done any of that so far. If teams are forcing him left, and he's never been the best going left. If teams force him left, he's picking up his dribble. He's not trying to get back in front of guys, which I don't know why. Maybe he's afraid he's going to get bumped or fall to the ground. He doesn't want to get hurt. I don't know. But he's picking up his dribble more than ever before, and CP3's always been a guy that's kept his dribble alive very well. So right now, I'm looking like a clown because Chris Paul looks bad. I will say this though, he had some very good defensive moments in the first half of this game, getting some steals, forcing some turnovers where he was fronting guys when they tried to post him up, and it caused some backside help that caused some turnovers. He had a nice job jabbing at the ball and then recovering to the corner and got a deflection that ended up going off of a Warriors player that ended up being our ball. But in transition or anytime someone's running at him, he is an absolute cone. And I just think his offense, if anything, has been more concerning. So in the fourth quarter, we had a couple of rushed possessions without a pass. James Harden came back into the game. Let's see when James Harden came back into the game, because Kawhi Leonard came back into the game to start the fourth quarter when we're down 15. And then James Harden comes back into the game when it's 66-80. So he came out of the game, we're down by 4, and now he comes back in the game, we're down 14. So in the first half, we were -7 with James Harden on the bench. This time, we were -10. So -17 points in these real minutes with James Harden on the bench. And that's partially on Chris Paul, partially on, I think, Kawhi to some degree as well. He didn't play very well. And I think both of the games that Kawhi hasn't played well, we've lost. And both of the games that he has played well, we've won. Which is, and so, by the way, we get those guys back in the game. We make it 68-80 at one point. And then Brook Lopez had a horrible stretch. Chris Dunn as well. A contested floater. I believe he had 3 turnovers in the second half. But let me double check that for Chris Dunn. 2 turnovers in the second half. So he wasn't good in the second half, and he made those 2 floaters against Portland, but he got a little carried away with his, creating his own shot. I think Chris Dunn is still just more of a play finisher in the NBA, not as much of a creator. But Brook Lopez had a really bad stretch when it was 68-80. He had an unnecessary double team where it was, I think, John Collins on Jimmy Butler, and then Quinton Post got a 3 out of it. Then he takes a contested three. I thought he took several bad shots in this game, and he's just forcing threes. When if guys run him off the line, he can take 1 to 2 dribbles for a floater. I don't think he has to be married to only shooting threes. And when teams switch on smaller guys onto him, he's only taking like the shitty defenders to the post. He's not taking like even the wings that are a lot shorter than him, but a little bit more athletic and bulky. And then Jimmy Butler scored on him on a late switch to put him up by 20, 88 to 68. When Zubac came out of the game, we were down 68-61. When he came back in the game, we were down 20. So we got outscored by 13 with him on the bench. And it was over. It was basically over. And then Ty Lue threw the towel with 5 minutes and 38 seconds left. But here's the crazy thing. Apparently, James Harden asked to come out. He asked to come out, which is shockingly rare. But coming up, going to be putting it all together. Yes, we lost because of a bad shooting game, but we're going to be talking about the individual performances. But I just wanted to talk about what went wrong in that third quarter. What happened was our rotation was thrown off. It was thrown off, and we just collapsed after that. And Ty Lue, to throw the game away with 5 minutes left and not even try to make a push, thought that was a little weak. Coming up, going to be evaluating everybody's performance. I got to tell you a little something about Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. My roommate uses Peloton. It looks pretty comfortable for him. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, talking about the Clippers losing 98-79 to the Golden State Warriors. We dropped to 2-2 on the season, 0-2 on the road, 2-0 at home. The Golden State Warriors are leading the Pacific right now at 4-1, 3-0 at Chase Center, with their only loss coming to the Portland Trailblazers, who we beat. But, man, Warriors off to a good start, and that makes me nervous because I did have our Clippers over them before the season started. Of course, this is their first year with having a full year of Jimmy Butler, but we had a lot of success against them last season with our size, and that's going to start bringing me to the individual performances in this game. So let's first talk about where it begins. Kawhi Leonard. I thought Kawhi Leonard wasn't very good, especially defensively. He's not guarding good players. I mean, actually, in this game, he was guarding Jimmy Butler, so I stand corrected on that. He was guarding Jimmy Butler. But you know what the thing with Kawhi is? It's not going to be his on-ball defense that we're going to really talk about. Because people are not going to go at him. You know, they know he's a good defender. It's going to be his off-ball defense and his transition defense. And so far this season, I haven't been very impressed. I think it was good in the 2 games we won, and I think it was not so good in the 2 games we lost. And the NBA is like that sometimes. If your best player plays well, you probably are going to win. If your best player doesn't play well, you're probably going to lose. And so far this season, that's been the case for Kawhi. The 2 games that he's played really well, we've won. And the 2 games that he hasn't, we've lost. And I'll take it a step further. The 2 games that he's shot 20 or more times, we've won. And the 2 games that he's shot less than 20 times, we've lost. So I think that's part of the formula. James Harden's been our best player undoubtedly in these first couple of games. But in my opinion, that is not what is best for the team. Now, some might argue, well, James Harden's just the best player on the team. I still think Kawhi's the best, and I'll argue anybody to the death of me that he is. I just think, you know, I'll talk about it in a second, what I noticed when it comes to those two guys' difference in aggression level. But for me, Kawhi Leonard wasn't good enough. 18 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. His rotations at times were slow. He's gambling too much on defense. And in transition, he's just been okay. 18 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 turnover on 7 for 17 shooting, 1 for 4 from 3, and 3 for 3 from the foul line. James Harden, on the other hand, was fantastic in the first half, but was 0 for 3 in the second half and asked to come out of the game. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 3 turnovers on 6 for 15 shooting, and 1 for 5 from 3, 7 for 7 from the free throw line. So here's the thing, right? At first, I was like, how could Tyronn Lue take out all these guys at once? But it turns out he was just taking Kawhi and Zoo out for their normal rotation, and James Harden asked to come out of the game and admitted it. So I'm not going to insult Harden's conditioning. It's early in the season. But in terms of Ty Lue, what I think was more of an interesting decision was how long he left Zoo out of this game. There was no urgency in that second half to get him back in. And granted, Zoo made some really soft passes. He's been looking like older Zoo so far this season, where he's flailing, where he's not catching the ball with two hands strong. He's going up soft sometimes. He's not hitting that push shot automatically like he was last season. He's gotten pushed out a little bit by Al Horford and Walker Kessler, and at times Donovan Clingan. They've pushed him out a little bit more than last year. But again, and everyone's talking about the weight loss. I have not seen, I have to go back and watch him play against Donovan Clingan, Al Horford, and Walker Kessler specifically. Because, of course, he was bullying guys, but, I don't remember if it was those guys specifically, and our sample size is not big enough to say, oh, the weight loss is causing Zoo to just get pushed around all the time. I don't think it's a big enough sample size yet. But what I will say is he's not looking as confident as last season. He's not looking as aggressive as last season on either end of the floor. He's having mental lapses in transition. He's having lazy moments on the defensive end where he doesn't look like a hungry force. And he had moments in the beginning of this third quarter where he looked like that. And then when Harden came out of the game, he started having those bad reads in the short roll, and it started a snowball effect that ended up getting us down by 7. And then when he came out of the game, we were even worse. So we need better from Zoo. We do. But I also think we need to feed him more. So here's my thing. In terms of Ty Lue, the bogey decision to start was questionable. However, it was only the second game he did it, so I'm not going to give him too much of a hard time for that. What I'm going to give him a hard time about is not sticking with it in the second half. But again, you could argue Bogey was playing so badly that you shouldn't have put him in the second half. I think the lack of urgency to put Zubac in the game. If some are asking, oh, he's still not starting Collins, that's a discussion for another day, but I do agree he should be starting. But if some are going to say, well, he should have left Kawhi Leonard or Zoo in when Harden got tired, I mean, we don't know what kind of minute regimen Kawhi Leonard is on right now. And I think that that's just it. You know what I'm saying? Ty Lue claimed that both of them got tired at the same time. Kawhi said not really. But we know that it's always a fishy situation with Kawhi's minutes, right? Here's my thing about our approach. I counted this manually because I watched the game and I was like, I feel like I need to go back and rewatch it. That's why I'm releasing the episode a little bit later because I didn't want to just get on. I did a Dime Dropper live last night, but I didn't feel like my analysis was that thorough on it. So I went back and watched the entire game until we threw in the towel on Synergy. And you know what I noticed in the first quarter? In the plays that were ran, not necessarily called by Ty Lue, some called by Ty Lue, but a lot of them freelance where he was just arms crossed, letting the players dictate. 12 of them were designed it was running through James Harden. 2 of them were designed to run through Kawhi, and I'm not counting transition. And Zoo, not really. I didn't count his, but it was maybe 1 or 2. But Zoo's involved with the screen. But in terms of dumping it to him, no. 12-2 in that distribution. So there's your answer right there about playing through Kawhi to start the game versus James. James is going to get us open shots more. Right now, Kawhi is not getting by. He hasn't gotten by guys consistently in years. I've said that since I took over as host of this show. It's always a contested jumper with Kawhi if he's creating for himself, usually. But he makes a lot of those. But his, it just comes down to if he's making his contested jumpers or not, which is a little bit dangerous for your best player, which makes you think, is James Harden our best player? Because he's the only one that can consistently get by his man, right? And he creates great shots for other guys. I don't know. So let me know in the comment section, what would you rather have? A James Harden pick and roll that's more likely to lead to an open shot, but for one of the other guys in the team, or a Kawhi Leonard isolation? Because the reality is this, that disparity is too much in the start of a game. And if James Harden's getting tired, then he needs to sacrifice. I watched the first quarter again. It was not Ty Lue running a bunch of plays for him, although you can make the argument that Ty Lue is the coach. He's the one that can say, look, we got to run through Kawhi more to start games. Because we came out running through Kawhi in the Portland game, and it worked. He had 30 points. 12 plays for James Harden versus 2 to Kawhi in the first quarter. That's questionable. Because if James Harden's going to get gassed, we need to change our approach. Also, we only fed Zubac in the post against Quinton Post twice. One time he got fouled and they didn't call it and he airballed. And then the second time was in the second half and he scored. We need to feed a mismatch like that more. Because the biggest mismatch in the beginning of the game, when you had Kuminga on Harden, Jimmy on Kawhi, and Post on Zoo, is Post on Zoo. That's the mismatch. And I'll give Quinton Post credit. He played some good defense in this game, but that's just not good enough. So James Harden getting tired, I'm not going to fully blame him. He was 0 for 3 in the second half, and I thought this was his best defensive game, actually. He actually got some stops and stayed in front of the ball. But, like, it doesn't have to be so Harden-centric. And Chris Paul's got to get better because when he's in the game, it feels like we got to get Harden back in it. And the whole point of getting Chris Paul was so we didn't feel that way anymore. So he's got to be better. But that's what I have to say about that. Horford was switching on to Harden in the first half, and that was partially why James was having some success. You know, he was getting downhill, and, you know, they were not helping off other guys as much. But, yeah, in terms of the lines, by the way, this is a very telling statistic, too. Outside of the big three, we only had 21 points, besides not counting the garbage time players like Kobe Brown and Cam Christie having 6 points. Chris Paul had a donut, 0 for 2 from the field. Brook Lopez had 3 points on 1 for 6 shooting and 0 for 4 from 3. John Collins only had 5 points, but he did have 7 rebounds. And I have to say, he didn't have as good of a game. You know, he missed some shots and had some turnovers, 2 of them. But I just like what Collins brings. His athleticism, he blocks shots, you know. But he only had 5 points. Nico had 3 points and 6 boards, so only 3 points. Bogey only had 2 points. And Derrick Jones Jr. was 1 for 6 from 3. And those were all his shots. So we had 21 points between 7 guys. That is not good enough at all. At all. James Harden, I already said, he finished with 20 points, 4 rebounds on 6 for 15 shooting and 1 for 5 from 3. Zubac had a double-double, 14 points, 12 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, but he had 3 turnovers. So 1 assist to 3 turnovers, and he was 7 for 12 from the field. So he was still efficient, but it still feels like he's not playing as well as last season. But that's not a very good game for Zoo. And I think because of the second half, I can't say it was a very good game for James Harden. I just think he was, again, he was the best of the bad performers. Kawhi Leonard, though, has to be better. But and I'm tired of saying we got to look to get him the ball. One thing I noticed is Harden's constantly coming to the ball. Kawhi is not really coming to the ball. But this is something that also has to change. When Kawhi Leonard has the ball, James Harden is standing 30 to 40 feet away from the basket, like kind of waiting for the ball, allowing his teammate to just wall off at the three-point line, wall off Kawhi. He's got a space. That's a very selfish thing to do, is just stand there waiting for the ball and not spacing, because it doesn't allow your guy to ISO. You're basically saying, give me the ball or I'm just going to clog your spacing. So, and he's done that for a long time in his career. So anyway, I think, again, I'm not going to say that James Harden wasn't our best player, because he was, but we need to run through Kawhi a little bit more. And by the way, Ty Lue said we didn't trust enough. We had a lot of no-pass possessions. Here are the following guys that committed no-pass shots: James, Kawhi, Chris, Brooke, Chris Dunn. But Chris Dunn wasn't in transition. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, although I'm hacked on Twitter right now. And subscribe to this channel, Locked On Clippers, for more. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And, of course, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.